Hello, everybody, and welcome back to McNulty's Book Corral. Thanks for checking in. Today I'm going to be talking about the nurturing power of books, the nurturing power of literature, which is, this is an episode I've been planning for some time. I want to talk about it in general terms because I think it's the most important topic of all. Really, all of the creative arts nurture us in many different ways, and there are other things that nurture us. But books in particular, as you can tell from this room that I'm sitting in, have had a very interesting influence on my life. So I'm going to cover a couple of different types of books and talk about the nurturing power of them. The reason we collect, the reason I collect, and I know that a lot of you other people, wonderful people watching this channel and many other booktube channels, the really good booktube channels, which this is not one of them. I kind of do my own thing and go off on tangents. But the reason that I think part of the reason we find this fascinating is because we're all on the same page as far as understanding how we've been nurtured by these books that we talk about, especially for you collectors. And my channel is much about collecting as it is about promoting literacy. So quite obviously, I've been doing that. And in different points in our lives, we find ourselves undergoing difficulties, and the books nurture us, films nurture us, and so on and so forth. And that's a vital thing that we need to do. At times, it can be a life-saving thing that we're doing, and I'll talk about that as well. So I'm going to cover a couple of topics. So we're nurtured in different ways. We're nurtured intellectually. We're nurtured spiritually. We're inspired and motivated by literature. We are learning from literature. We're learning about history. We're learning about the way people function, how they handle different scenarios. How do they handle problems? Can we relate to the characters and their problems? All of this is an incredible encyclopedia of human experience, and to be nurtured by it is to recognize that we're doing this, and I believe most people do. And of course, we are also simply entertained by literature. Nothing wrong with popcorn entertainment. I've discussed that as well. But I'm going to give you some examples from my life. So, and show you some different types of books is really the purpose here, because I don't like doing the same books over and over. So let's go to 1970. I want to do that. I have a little stack right here of things. I read this book, The Great Movie Stars, The Golden Years by David Shipman. This is a 1970 book, which is really just an encyclopedia of Hollywood actors and actresses from the silent films through 1945. And it has individual, it's alphabetical listing. So here's Bing Crosby and then B.B. Daniels. All right. And here you usually get one photo or two of each person. And they have, I don't know, a page and a half, sometimes more of information. B.B. Daniels has almost 4 pages. Nobody remembers B.B. Daniels, and you would find that in this book. It covers them all. I mean, right here on the cover, we have Bogart and Douglas Fairbanks, Tracy and Hepburn, and Clark Gable and Vivian Leigh, and Judy Garland right up here. So it's really just a listing, a brief biography of the actors and a list of their films. This is before the internet, obviously. So, you would use books like this. And over there, I haven't shown them yet. I have really a very large collection, a nonfiction collection of Hollywood history books, which is over here. I'll get to that at a later date. But this one's interesting. So I'm reading this in 1970, and this, we're watching the films on television. This is long before cable, obviously, and the internet. And late night movies, the late show, the matinees, the Saturday matinees, wherever you are in the country, you're watching old films whenever you can. And this television in the 60s and certainly into the 70s really sparked an interest in looking at Hollywood films from the past. And that led to a lot of different things involving restoration and histories, biographies, autobiographies, etc. So anyways, I'm reading this and I'm interested in Hollywood films and nonfiction. In other words, I'm educating myself. And these films are nurturing me as well. You know, you're watching a Western, you're watching John Wayne and the Searchers on television for the first time. I was born in 55, so, you know, I didn't see that film until it was on television. And we have all of this sparking interest in us, and we're starting to make connections. As a young man, I'm making connections. That takes me to Los Angeles, where I began collecting Hollywood memorabilia. And I start out with lobby cards. Here's a Bogart from The Big Sleep. I'll just show you a few. Douglas Fairbanks from Green Hell. Pretty much a forgotten film. I interviewed Douglas Fairbanks many, many years later. Alan Ladd, Appointment with Danger. Is Alan Ladd even remembered today other than Shane? John Agar, I interviewed him at his home in Burbank. I have video of that. And so this is where it took me. You know, it took me down this interesting road. John Agar, The Golden Mistress. And Richard Burton, Prince of Players. He was such a great actor. He died too young. Tyrone Power and Terry Moore with Michael Rennie and the King of the Khyber Rifles. So again, I'm collecting this material and I'm making connections, names to films, to years, to eras, to film locations, to plots, to story development. My Cousin Rachel with Olivia de Havilland and Richard Burton, based upon the novel by Daphne du Maurier, which I have a first edition up there on that shelf. So you see that we start to... I was educating myself. I was making connections to a lot of different ideas. Posse from Hell, one of my favorite Audie Murphy films right here. What a great movie. Tumbleweed, Audie Murphy again. And this is an original Gentleman Jim lobby card, Errol Flynn, early 40s. One of the great Errol Flynn films. So I'm collecting material. I'm making connections. So it does that for me. I'm formulating an education about film history and acting. I've mentioned before I grew up in a theatrical family. My mother was a stage actress. So all of this is connecting with me for a lot of different reasons. And it takes me to different locations. You know, Los Angeles was one of numerous locations. I've gone from Chicago to here, there, and everywhere. And not only am I collecting material and educating myself about film history and about acting and writing, creating plots, but I'm in contact with some of the most fascinating people in the world. I'm having conversations with people because I had read this book in 1970 and began collecting Hollywood books and memorabilia. That's the way it played out. And I don't regret a minute of it, obviously. I mean, that's one aspect of being nurtured from a nonfiction book to collecting and talking to collectors. You start to go to different places. You start looking up locations to buy material. You begin developing friendships. Again, it's something that blossoms. So let's switch gears. Other things happen too, So thanks to the world of literature, I'm introduced to a wide variety of writers. I've talked about the Shadow novels, Doc Savage. I've talked about those, and I have an episode out there about that a little bit. And then there's this guy. This is my introduction to Robert E. Howard, which is Conan the Barbarian. This is that's a Frazetta cover. L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter started putting out these books, putting together some of Howard's original material and then material that they wrote together. Lynn Carter and L. Sprague de Camp doing this stuff, putting it out, and these books become, I have the whole set. I have duplicates. Here's Conan of Samaria, Robert E. Howard, L. Sprague de Camp, and Lynn Carter. And The Curse of the Monolith by DeCamp and Carter. These were pastiche, writing in the style of Robert E. Howard, and then reprinting some of his work. And all of a sudden, Robert E. Howard is on everybody's radar. And he has not left anybody's radar ever since then. I mean, these books, I'm just showing you a couple here. I have all of these paperbacks. I have duplicates of them, and so forth and so on. And this is ongoing today. This was what year was this? I don't remember. This had to be 1967. Was when the 60s, everybody starts reprinting. A lot of publishers and editors start reprinting classic pulp writers. So all of a sudden we have Robert E. Howard on our radar. And today, I think Robert E. Howard is bigger today than anyone could ever have possibly imagined. Robert E. Howard is an industry today. So much so that recently, the Robert E. Howard Foundation is out there. And I recently purchased this from the Robert E. Howard Foundation. This is also available in hardcover. And this, another collection. I didn't need it. I didn't need this. But it's a nice collection to read. This, however, is significant because this collection reprints Skullface, which was a full-length novel that Robert E. Howard wrote. And it's similar to the Fu Manchu stories. It's the Yellow Peril type thing. I don't think it's a great novel, but it's Robert E. Howard, so there's quality involved. Certainly anything he wrote. So you can see where this took me to the world of imagination, the world of adventure, to this very day. This is this year. Robert E. Howard. In fact, Skullface, if you get a chance, get this on Amazon or from the Robert E. Howard Foundation. Skullface is little known. I have this kind of a rare edition from England that I purchased in London in 2019, which also reprints Skullface and some other stuff. So anyways, I'm nurtured by the world of imagination, the world of adventure. This is another aspect of it. We have the nonfiction material, and we're going to get to some more of that. And then we have the pulps, which are entertaining the hell out of us, really. You know what I mean? Robert E. Howard is unsurpassed. Other ways that we can be nurtured spiritually. And so I have the Thomas Merton Reader. If you don't know who Thomas Merton is, this is a collection of he wrote a lot of books, various things that he wrote, excerpts and some complete essays. Thomas Merton was a Trappist monk at the Abbey of Gethsemane in Kentucky. I was just talking to a friend recently about this. Wouldn't it be fascinating? Thomas Merton is long gone. But the Abbey is still there, and you can go and stay there for a few days. Wouldn't that be fascinating? Now, I'm not a Catholic, but Thomas Merton is very high on my list of spiritual religious writers because he had such a beautiful, inquisitive mind, and he was able to piece things together. He's constantly questioning the universe, the world, the culture. He was one of the first who promoted the idea of interfaith discussions, and in so doing, he put himself next to the Dalai Lama. And that's just an amazing story right there by itself. His first book was called The Seven-Story Mountain, late 40s, and that is his autobiography, and that's a beautiful book. You should read it. That's a classic. It is such a great book. So Thomas Merton, if you're interested in looking at spiritual types of reading, this leads you to the Dalai Lama. It might lead you to Alan Watts. It might lead you to other Christian writers. That's all great, Thomas Merton is very, very high on my list of among the great spiritual religious writers. I just love his work. Always looking at the world objectively, questioning things, piecing it together to his own faith. For him, his faith was in his heart. and interesting guy. Let me just leave it at that before I open my big mouth again and say something I shouldn't. Quite the fan right here. So spiritually, we are nurtured by literature, different types of literature. So, for me, my mind begins to connect names to ideas and personalities, to cultural events. Raymond Burr in the Perry Mason TV show led me to Earl Stanley Gardner Perry Mason novels, which I think I've shown you some of those over here, and that eventually leads me to this book, which is the science fiction stories of Earl Stanley Gardner, which people don't realize exists. I don't know if I've shown this before. He also wrote some Western stories. I have that collection in the other room. This collection of science fiction features one of my all-time favorite stories from this era. It's called Rain Magic. And it's just such an amazing story. It was originally published in 1928. It's included here with several other stories. So you see, Perry Mason leads me to other aspects of Earl Stanley Gardner, whose name is now in my mind, Perry Mason, Earl Stanley Gardner, this, which is one of the great collection. I think this is out of print. Nonfiction. Let's talk about nonfiction. Let's go back to the nonfiction. Some of you may have seen a film called Das Boot. I'm probably mispronouncing that German title of that film. It was made in Germany, and it's a German film, and it had subtitles. I don't know if there's an English language version of it. Anyways, that film had to have been inspired by this incredible book. This nonfiction account of German submarine command in World War II by a survivor, Herbert A. Werner, is one of the most riveting accounts about World War II that you will ever read. And what a lucky man that he survived to write this book. If you're familiar with Das Boot, you'll recognize all of the elements in that film come from here. I don't know if they officially gave this book credit for inspiring that film, but it certainly did, in my opinion. Just watch the film, read this book if you can find it. So for nonfiction, we're learning history, we're learning about different perspectives. Germans were the enemy, and yet when you read this book, you'll understand them better. You'll understand the passion that they had for what they believed in, even though it turned out to be false. It became a tragedy for the world. But Herbert A. Werner survived it and wrote about it. And it's just, you're going to get a different perspective. This is another aspect of nurturing us. We need that. We need those different perspectives in order for all of us to understand the world better. Iron Coffins by Herbert A. Werner, one of my favorite. This was actually my father's book. And I'm so happy that I have it. Other types of nurturing. The world of fiction, Andre Norton, who was really Alice Mary Norton. I'm going to have an episode about her. This is just one of her many, many, many imaginative fantasy, science fiction fantasy books. This is from, 1960... I think this is from 63. I have a stack over here of Andre Norton. And like I said, I'm going to have an episode about her. This is an author I collect. And the reason I collect Andre Norton, Alice Mary Norton, is because her imagination, like Robert E. Howard, it didn't have any boundaries to it. So I'm nurtured. I was and continue to be, because I'm still collecting her. I think I have almost everything, but not quite. She wrote so much, I know I'm not even close, I guess. But I have a lot. I have stacks, okay? She nurtured me because of her imagination. The best fantasy science fiction writers, genre writers, always nurture us through their incredible imaginations. And I don't know when I'm going to do the Andre Norton episode, probably in the fall. Just to give you an idea how that works. Another one, Roger Zelazny. This is the original edition that I read in the 70s, Nine Princes in Amber, which is the first of the Amber novels. Most of you are familiar with Roger Zelazny. Yes, another one whose imagination just took off, and it just galloped. Fantastic. During difficult times for me in the 1970s, which was an interesting but sometimes unpleasant decade for me, I was pretty young, I know you're shocked to hear I was young once. Roger Zelazny is one of those authors who kept me going. He inspired me. He thrilled me. He intrigued me. There's enigmas involved, unraveling the mysteries, and what is he doing here? Where is this going? Roger Zelazny was that type of nurturing author. Ray Bradbury, Something Wicked This Way Comes. This is also my original Bantam books. Bantam Books did a whole series with this logo on them. I have them in other editions. This is one of the great novels of all time. Another fascinating novel that intrigued me. It frightened me because this is really a spooky book. And Ray Bradbury at his very, very best. Something Wicked This Way Comes. You're reading this, if you read this book, I know I've watched booktubers in the last couple of years who have read this, young booktubers, for the first time, and most of them didn't get it. I can't explain that. I attribute that to maybe a lack of literary experience, and if they dig deeper, you have to give yourself a cosmopolitan education, and understand the differences in genres, differences in voice, tone of voice, the author's voice versus the narrator's voice, and piece it together. This is certainly one of the great books of all time. Ray Bradbury nurtured me. I met Bradbury. I took some wonderful pictures of him. I'm always forgetting to grab stuff. I only met him once, but I corresponded with him. What a wonderful man. He was a nurturing soul. His books nurture people. His books, we're nurtured because when we're down and out, we need something to lift us up. So we read Ray Bradbury. We read Robert E. Howard. We read Andre Norton, and we read nonfiction. We're learning. We read about films. We watch the films. It's aspects of our culture, in general, can be so nurturing if we allow that to happen. And you have to allow it to happen. If you allow that to happen, you're going to discover, I don't think I'd be here if it wasn't for books and films. Really, I don't think it would have made it. Would have been a different world. A couple of other things. Okay, so poetry. In this channel, I've neglected poetry. I have an episode I've already filmed about Allen Ginsberg. Howl is a poem that has nurtured me for years. I read this in high school. Never forget it. I'm not going to talk about it here, except, I have an episode where I talk about Allen Ginsberg, and I'm going to edit that a little bit because of some aspects of it that I'm uncomfortable with some of the things that I said, because I do have a big mouth. But Allen Ginsberg, great poets. So Allen Ginsberg leads me to City Lights books. Lawrence Ferlinghetti, I talked about him in an episode. How about Lunch Poems by Frank O'Hara? This is the Pocket Poets series, from City Lights. Out of San Francisco. So poetry is another aspect. My very first published work was in high school, was a poem. In high school. So there you go. A couple of other three more books. I want to show you this one. John Hawkes. I don't think I've talked about John Hawkes. This is The Cannibal, which is one of his better known books. This is such an enigma of a book. So why is this nurturing to me? This is a post-war fantasy with a lot of symbolism. John Hawkes is not an easy writer to grasp. He is not an easy writer to get through at times, and yet I find him compelling and intriguing and a mystery to unravel. So books like this nurture the intellectual side of us, the searching side of us when we're looking for things. I may do an episode about John Hawkes and some of his other books. Quite an interesting writer. You can Google about him and read some of his books. I have more behind me here. So, there's other ways that we nurture ourselves for entertainment, for understanding life, for intellectual stimulation, to challenge ourselves intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. We have to push through it. Robert Nathan, I've talked about him. I just grabbed Long After Summer. Robert Nathan is another one I collect, author of Portrait of Jenny and the Bishop's Wife. I'm sure you're familiar with those films, especially The Bishop's Wife. Robert Nathan nurtures me to this day in a variety of ways. He entertains me. He nurtures me emotionally, creatively. I admire his literary style and his effort at telling a story, the way he tells a story, the way he pieces it together. Robert Nathan is one of those that's an all-purpose nurture for me, and I've talked about him before, so I didn't want to say too much about it. And then finally, to end it, Henry Miller, Tropic of Cancer. This book was banned in the United States for many years because of the sexual content. That's not the reason to read it. The reason to read this is because of his free-flowing style, which I've talked about before. I've talked about Henry Miller before, which was very much influenced by people like George Orwell and Newt Hampson. Henry Miller is a really interesting guy. Again, this is pre-war Paris, as Hemingway may have experienced it in a slightly different manner. Pre-war Paris. This is a history lesson, but it's mostly about people. It's how do people live? What is he experiencing? Henry Miller was quite the beautiful mind as well. Yes, there's people call them dirty parts. I don't find this book to be pornographic at all. It's blunt, but it's not like today, So we are nurtured in different ways by the world of literature and by the best aspects of our culture. I know for other people that the booktuber community, which is a great community, I think some of them do a much better job at talking about the books that nurture them than I do. There are so many of them. In several episodes now, I've given a list of booktubers that I've mentioned, and these are all people that you can seek out and look at the books that they're talking about, and look at what they're saying about them, and how sometimes they've struggled with them, but they come to appreciate certain authors for certain aspects that enriches their lives. Everything you see here, which is too much, has enriched my life in a very positive way. And I can only hope that I'm expressing it in a manner that you understand where I'm coming from. Again, there are people out there that do this much better than I do. But the nurturing power of literature is what I wanted to talk about today. So much to talk about. Every episode I've done in some way has been about being nurtured by literature, which, again, that includes being entertained, popcorn, or to be nurtured spiritually or intellectually or philosophically, in all of these different manners. It's just an amazing thing for us to be doing this. And it's a privilege, I think, in our world today to be doing it. Freedom is a tenuous thing, is it not, in this day and age? Okay, so I have rambled on yet again. I hope you found this at least modestly interesting. I'm interested in the books that nurtured you. And when people make recommendations to me, if I'm unfamiliar with the author, I do write it down. Watch a lot of booktube channels. Stay well, my friends. Stay happy. Feed your beautiful minds. Read a book.